Mai ananyena bhavena bhaktim kurvanti ye dritam matkrite tyakta karmanas tyakta svajana bandhava. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. So this mention of sadhu is referring to the previous verse where it says, Titikshava karunika surida sarvodehinam sadava ajita satprava sadhu ajita satprava santa sadhava sadhubhusana. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. So now it's continuing. It says, such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yes, so we read the purport, and that is the life of a sadhu is one of dedication to Krishna. Through complete dedication to Krishna, one also renounces everything. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnaniyat Yasuvairagyam Jnanam Chayad Haitakam. So, by engaging in the service of Krishna, Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, not engaged in devotional service without any selfish interest. Jnaniyat Vasuvairagyam. So, a concomitant factor of such dedicated service is that knowledge and renunciation follow. You don't have to separately cultivate, now I'll go through a period of my life of renunciation. Now I'll go through a period of my life cultivating knowledge. No. By engaging in devotional service naturally, by the nature of the service, if it's pure service, knowledge and renunciation follow. Jnanam vairagyam. Jnanam chayad. So it says, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jnanayat Yasavairagyam Jnanam Chayad Haitukam. This is the causeless mercy of Krishna. And Krishna also says, Te sam satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. For one who engages in my devotional service, unwavering in all circumstances, I give the knowledge by which he comes to me. So, this is a gift of Krishna, the gift of knowledge and renunciation. Therefore, we should not ever doubt the glories of devotional service. So that's the 10th chapter, 10th verse. Those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they come to me. So he refers to Buddhi Yogam. Buddhi Yoga means action in devotional service. That's why he said, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnaniyat Yasavairagam Jnanam Chayatahotakam. One who engages in devotional service, then knowledge and renunciation follows. Let's just say that's Vasudevi Bhagavati. That's first canto, second chapter, 7th verse. And let's just look at that verse a little more carefully. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So immediately, that's another important part of this verse. One does not have to separately endeavor. So Buddhi Yoga is equated with Bhakti Yoga, It means action in Krishna consciousness. In other words, when a person has knowledge of, when a person knows Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the goal of life, and engages in the service of the Lord will naturally endow that person with knowledge and renunciation. And therefore, he also says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pavartate. One who, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So, buddhi means intelligence, and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. So when one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, then one fully takes to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, and his actions are called buddhi yoga. In other words, buddhi yoga is a process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. You need intelligence to get out of the entanglement of the material world. You need to know what is entangling and what is liberating. So, devotional service rendered without any personal interest, but simply to please the Lord, is liberating. Devotional service rendered with a material goal is entangling. Service in general with a material goal is even more entangling. So, therefore, one needs intelligence to understand what is the actual path of liberation. And this is right from the second chapter, this is explained, but in the fourth chapter, a little more precise information is given, where Krishna says that karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanas cha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. He says that the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what is action, what is forbidden action, and what is inaction. So that's why it's saying here in the 10th chapter, verse number 10 in the purport, buddhi yoga is a process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. So to do that, you have to understand what is action, what is inaction, and what is forbidden action. So if one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand these distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized action. One has to apply oneself to the analysis of action, reaction, and perverted action, because it's a very difficult subject matter. Look how even Arjuna, such a highly qualified person, he was not able to understand. And he became confused. He thought that inaction was Krishna consciousness. But no, that's not a fact. That's what all the Mayavadis think. They think inaction is spiritual life. But that's not true. That's why Bhagavad Gita is such an interesting presentation by Krishna. So he says, karmani akarmaya pasyet, akarmanahi cha karmana ya, sabudima manusyesu sayukta krishna karma krit. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, that he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So, inaction in action is actually Krishna consciousness. When you act only to please Krishna under the orders of the bona fide gurus, Siksha and Diksha gurus, even though you're acting, there's no reaction. So Krishna instructed Arjuna to kill Karna with his back turned to him, off his chariot and unarmed. That is sin. But because Krishna ordered him to do it, and Arjuna hesitated a little bit, but then he did it, he became Arjuna, the most famous devotee Even though in a normal condition, you kill a person with their back turned to you, unarmed, etc. It's a dastardly thing to do. It's sinful. But in the case of Arjuna, he was simply following Krishna's order. There was no sinful reaction. Sarvadharmam parityaja mami kam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papyapya moksisyami masucha. Just surrender unto me, Arjuna. Give up all your fabricated dharmas, this dharma, that dharma. And if you do this, I will protect you from all sinful reactions incurred in the process of serving me. Therefore, you have nothing to worry about. Now, this has been misinterpreted by nonsensical people. And when I say nonsensical people, I mean neophyte devotees who thought that, well, you can do anything for Krishna, such as even break the regulative principles, as long as you offer the result to Krishna. Is that what Arjuna did? What do you think? What did Arjuna do? No, he killed somebody, right? That's pretty serious, isn't it? Not on his own. That's the point. He simply followed Krishna's order with full faith in Krishna. But, and I can tell you, frankly, this is a fact, there were devotees, even in Prabhupada's time, who thought that we can do anything as long as you offer the result to Krishna. So they engaged in drug dealing, they engaged in murder, and all kinds of things. And this is a fact. It's not, I'm not making it up, I'm not exaggerating. And they thought as long as they offer the result to Krishna, everything is all right. Does that make sense? No. No, not at all. So, but it's easy to misinterpret things if you ignore Guru and Krishna. I mean, you can read Krishna's words, like for here it's saying, a person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. So one time I had to deal with a devotee who engaged in illicit sex, but he had the nerve to tell me, "Oh, Prabhu, I've taken care of it already. I chanted extra rounds the next day." Now, does that sound right? That's what? To commit sinful activity on the strength of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that's the seventh offense against the holy name, you say. And there was another devotee who told me, who was a pujari, said, well, after I have sex with my wife, I don't go on the altar for 3 days. I chant 24 rounds every day. Does that sound right? It's complete nonsense. But these are devotees, initiated, and Brahmins, you see. So it's easy to misinterpret things as soon as one develops the habit of not listening to bona fide classes. It's very easy. You get into the habit of not listening to class, and then you can speculate anything you want. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. Now, if you just read that one line, and you misinterpret acting in Krishna consciousness as you can do anything for Krishna as long as you offer the result. You see how easy it is to misinterpret things. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Well, that means you can do anything, right? As long as you offer the results to Krishna. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society. Yeah, everyone else is an idiot, and he is the only really smart guy, right? Even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Yeah, all sorts of activities, illicit sex, gambling, drug dealing, meat eating, whatever, as long as you offer the result to Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear, so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of his service, of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. This can be easily misinterpreted to end up, I can do anything as long as I chant Hare Krishna and I offer the result to Krishna. But that's not a fact. What is the fact? Well, you have to read further in chapter 4. Tat vidi paripatena paripastena sevaya upadeksyami te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So in other words, what's implied here is you cannot serve Krishna directly. That's the mistake these people are making. They're initiated, they're Brahmins, they chant maybe 16 rounds a day. They're vegetarians, right? So, and they've been in the movement, let's say 10, 20, 30 years. So they think, oh yeah, well, I don't have to go to class, and I only take instructions from Prabhupada, and only those instructions that support my sense gratification. Like this verse, 4:18. Basically, you can interpret anything you want from it, right? But further on in that same chapter, it says that you have to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. So the people they're rendering service, but they're rendering service unto themselves, not to the Guru. Can you follow Prabhupada by breaking the regulative principles? No. So they're breaking the regulative principles, illicit sex and intoxication, drug dealing, murder. How can that be offered to Prabhupada? Because we can only offer the Krishna through Prabhupada. So unless Prabhupada orders it, which he hasn't, it's not possible. How can he order you to break the regulative principles? He would never do that. Just like, for example, at one time there was this movement in our movement for men to marry more than one wife. Because it's mentioned that polygamy is permitted, right? How about Krishna had over 16,000 wives, right? Arjuna had 4 wives, and so forth. And Draupadi had 5 husbands, not 1, 5 husbands, right? So there was a strong push, and then people were writing Prabhupada, GBC men were writing Prabhupada that they wanted to marry another woman or several other women and so forth. And they quoted from Prabhupada's books about polygamy. And Prabhupada made a final decision. It says, not allowed. If you want to marry more than one wife, you can, but you have to go outside the temple. You can't be associated with the movement. You can practice Krishna consciousness at home with your 4 wives or 10 wives or 100 wives, but you can't be part of the temple. You can't be officially associated with the movement. You can practice Krishna consciousness, but you can't be associated with the movement. Why? Because he said, we'll be breaking the law of the United States, where polygamy is not allowed. You can have illicit connections, yeah, that's sort of allowed here, but you can't be married to 3 or 4, more than one wife. And you can't be keeping a bunch of mistresses in Krishna consciousness. That's illicit sex. So we see Prabhupada, even though polygamy is something that is allowed in the scriptures, in the context of the United States and Western civilization, where the Judeo-Christian principles are prevalent, he said, we're not going to do it. Right? Because why? First of all, was Arjuna a womanizer? No, he wasn't. They all followed the rules. When Arjuna broke one rule, that was each Pandava would be with Draupadi alone for 1 year, Arjuna interrupted Yudhisthira and Draupadi on the plea that there were some, he's wearing shoes in the temple room, on the plea that he would, there were enemies attacking the kingdom and there was an emergency. Yudhisthira said, no, you broke the rules. You have to go in exile for 1 year. They were strictly following the rules and regulations, even of one woman being married to 5 men. There are still rules. So we can't ignore 4th chapter, 34th verse, that you have to try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire submissively, and render service. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you. Now, in the purport, it says, unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. So what did these devotees do? They stopped asking Prabhupada. They just spoke to devotees. They said, well, we're doing this for Lord Jagannath, and we're going to help the movement, and blah, 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 blah. So many self-righteous causes in their minds. And devotees who were not trained properly thought they were doing the right thing. In fact, cooperated with them to deal drugs and so forth. You know. However, Prabhupada says, unless there's submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master, unless there's submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So this is the part of the Bhagavad Gita that they did not see. You have to pass the test of the spiritual master. Then he blesses the devotee or the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. So, when Prabhupada found out that money was coming from illegal activities, he stopped it. That's why they didn't want to tell Prabhupada. So they got away with it as long as they didn't tell him how they were getting that money. But when he found out that it was from illegal activities, he stopped it. So we see here the importance of having the guidance of bona fide gurus, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. Otherwise, easily, we will make many mistakes on the basis of our reading of the Shastra. We should assume that we can't directly approach Krishna. It has to be through the instructions of the bona fide gurus. Okay. So Prabhupada has written in a letter, he says, this August 24th, 1972, he writes, one thing we should always remember is that all of our devotees picked up here are accustomed to all these bad habits in their past life. So if sometimes they reveal their old characteristics, instead of rejecting them, it is up to us to rectify them as far as possible. So try to reform so-and-so. What will he do by coming here, meaning if he joins Prabhupada? So-and-so has indicated that this devotee has already shaved his sika and has left everything. Do you think the United States is a magic place? Simply by coming to India, he will become reformed? If possible, you can send... Okay, I'm sorry. Do you think the USA is a magic place? Simply by coming here, he will be reformed? He's saying, if you send... They were in Australia, so if you send a devotee back to the United States, you think he'll be reformed? If possible, you can send him to the USA, but it is better to correct him to the standard point by friendly gestures. We can reject anyone. That is very easy. But to reform him, that requires great skill and tact. And if you can reform him there by kind words and dealings, that is best. He says, you make a very considered effort to help him over his difficulties and persuade him that everything is all right, that I am not angry or displeased in any way. These things will sometimes happen even with the best devotees, and in this way try and persuade him to become engaged with his previous enthusiasm for becoming once again a great devotee. He is a young boy, so we should not take his actions too seriously. Better to forget the past and try to reform him. His service can be once again very much valuable there. I know he's a good boy. Do not drive him away. That will be the discredit of all of you leaders. But if there is great difficulty, he may come and live with me here in Los Angeles for a time being. I have no objection. Okay, so you see, the key point here is Prabhupada is saying, we can reject anyone. That is very easy. But to reform him, that requires great skill and tact. And if you can reform him there by kind words and dealings, that is best. So we see a determination has to be made. Is this person envious of Prabhupada and Krishna consciousness? If that person is really envious, then it's almost impossible to reform that person. But if they're just stupid, ignorant, weak, those type of people can all be reformed. Stupid, ignorant, weak, lackless in following the regulative principles. All those things can be reformed. But if the person is genuinely envious, then they must be kept at a distance. Therefore, even Prabhupada, after giving all these instructions, he did send away some devotees who were people who were initiated, who were extremely envious. And although he tried his best to reform them, so in other words, it's better they stay away until they realize their foolishness. Then they come back. We can forgive them. There's no problem. So, therefore, the next verse is very important. It says that Mad Ashraya Kata Mrishta Shrivanti Katayanti Cha Tapanti Vividas Tapa Naita Mad Gata Chetasaha. Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from the material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Now, this is an extremely important verse, and the purport is as follows. There are many multifarious miseries in material existence, those pertaining to the body and the mind, those imposed by other living entities, and those imposed by natural disturbances. But a sadhu is not disturbed by such miserable conditions because his mind is always filled with Krishna consciousness, and thus he does not like to talk about anything but the activities of the Lord. Maharaj Ambarisha did not speak of anything but the pastimes of the Lord. Vachamsi Vaikunta Guna Nuvarnane, Bhagavatam 9.4.18. He engaged his words only in glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sadhus are always interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord or his devotees. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful of the material miseries. Ordinary conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always full of anxieties and material tribulations. On the other hand, since the devotees always engage in the topics of the Lord, they are forgetful of the miseries of material existence. So this is extremely important. This is the test to see if someone is actually Krishna conscious or not. If you know a devotee is always complaining about this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, you know that they are not really thinking much about Krishna, nor have specific service to please the Lord. Their mind is wandering always away from Krishna, and that's why they're dwelling on the miseries of life. So it says here, ordinary conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always full of anxieties and material tribulations. There's always some problem in their life. This one did this, that one did that. This is not right, that's not right. I'm so discouraged. Why are you discouraged? Why? Because you're concentrating on the miseries and not concentrating on Krishna's pastimes. That's why you're discouraged. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful. In other words, the devotees, on the other hand, who are interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord or his devotees, since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they're forgetful of the material miseries. So, by not hearing about Krishna, one forgets Krishna and focuses on the miseries. By hearing regularly about Krishna, one focuses on Krishna and forgets the miseries. So which one do we want to be? You say, is this, huh? What? Yeah, you want to remember Krishna, right? You want to hear about, well, to remember Krishna, you have to hear about him continually, because our material disease is we forget. In one ear, out the other. Because we forget so easily, therefore we forget Krishna. We heard something in the morning, we walk out of the temple room, we've already forgotten. And we're focusing only on the miseries. Therefore it says, Tate nukampam susamik samano punjana evatman kritam vipakam hridvak vapur bir vidadam namaste jivete yo mukti pade sodayabak. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your mercy, your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So, this is a very important verse if you want to remain in Krishna consciousness. If you want to leave easily, then ignore this verse. This is explained more thoroughly in the 12th chapter, 13th and 14th verse. Advaita sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmama nirhankara. I'm sorry, one second. Nirmama nirhankara samadukha sukam shami santusta satata yogi yatatma dhritanishchaya mayarpata mano buddhir yomad bhakta samepriya. So this verse says, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend of all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. And in a purport, Prabhupada says, coming again to the point of pure devotional service, the Lord is describing the transcendental qualifications of a pure devotee in these two verses. A devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances. Okay, why? Why? Why is a devotee, a real devotee, never disturbed in any circumstances? Okay, say it out loud so everyone can hear. Yeah, he's always engaged in Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and repeating about Krishna. Therefore, is not disturbed in any circumstance, right? And besides that, because he's constantly hearing chanting, he's always engaged in some devotional service. There's never a lull, never a dull moment, always engaged. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstance, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So it is better to suffer than to protest. So this is an important point. Who have you ever heard say it's better to suffer than to protest? Huh? Have you ever heard anyone say that? Any co-workers? No. People are always protesting. Black Lives Matter. Blah, blah, blah. They're protesting all the time. And what happens? There's a reaction. There's action, reaction, more reaction, more action, more reaction, more action, more reaction. It never ends. So here it's saying, so it is better to suffer than to protest. Oh, well, wait a minute. The suffering becomes bliss. Now we're going to hear about that. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, Tate nukampam susamiksamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the Lord's mercy upon him. He doesn't say, this is the Lord's curse on me. Or the Lord is not a kind Lord. The Lord is not my Lord anymore. Otherwise, I was serving him. Why did this suffering come? No. He understands that suffering is there due to his past misdeeds. And it's actually a type of mercy of the Lord. It's the best type of mercy. Thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. So the devotee realizes that the Lord is giving him token suffering. He's actually diminished it. Now look at those people who are not devotees. Their suffering is unimaginable. Look at those people in Iraq and Syria. Look at those people in Africa and Sudan, South Sudan. Look at those people living in Chicago. Look at the people living in Seattle. Every day you're hearing about unbelievable suffering. So the suffering a devotee gets is nothing compared to what the materialists are getting and the atheists are getting. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, I gave you examples of devotees who were initiated first and second, who were chanting off and on, and who said that everything they're doing is for Krishna consciousness. So they justified breaking all the rules: murder, drug dealing, illicit sex, and so forth. So if you've been freed from all sinful reactions in the past, but you commit sinful actions after you're initiated, the reaction is extremely severe, because you're making your guru suffer, because he shares the reaction of the disciple that he accepted, who sins after initiation, and you get also the reaction. So one of those, I'm not going to go through all these histories. There's so many histories of devotees who suffered severely after they were initiated. So how do you explain that? Why were they suffering after initiation? Huh? Yes. Yes. So there's 10 offenses against the holy name. There are offenses against the holy Dham. There's offenses against people. So there's so many offenses, right? There's 64 offenses enumerated in the Nectar of Devotion, right? So we have to be extremely careful after we get initiated. If we simply follow what we promised at initiation, no meat eating, fish, eggs, etc., no intoxication, including coffee and tea, no illicit connections outside of marriage or even in marriage, and no gambling and speculation. Right? So, and then we have to chant 16 rounds every day, hear regularly Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, morning and evening, and do service in the temple, and eat only prasadam. So, do you think it's easy to break the principles? Well, if a person is not careful, yeah, it's very easy to break them. Do you think we don't? Nobody breaks any principles after initiation? That would be naive to believe that. Therefore, we have to always be hearing and chanting in the association of devotees and not be a separatist. Because if you're a separatist, there's no way there to correct you. But if you're always in the association of good devotees and hearing and chanting together, then you can be corrected if there's need for it. Or you can correct yourself also because you're constantly hearing. So, we'll finish this. He says, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I'm just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the devotee is always calm, quiet, and patient, despite many distressful conditions. A devotee is also always kind to everyone, even to his enemy. Nirmama means that a devotee does not attach much importance to the pains and trouble pertaining to the body because he knows perfectly well that he is not the material body. He does not identify with the body. Therefore, he is freed from the conception of false ego and equipoised in happiness and distress. Equipoised in happiness and distress. Key phrase. This is also, it's right in the second chapter, which is the summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, after Arjuna asks him, what are the symptoms of a transcendental person? He says, Dukke su anudvigna mana, sukhe su vigata spriha, vitaragabhaya krodha, man stita dir munu uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So even in that purport, second chapter, 56th verse, Prabhupada says, so a fully Krishna-conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So, this is Krishna consciousness. And therefore, unless we hear this, we can become bewildered. We can say, oh, well, I got initiated. All my sinful reactions are gone. How come I'm suffering? There must be something wrong with the philosophy. No. There's nothing wrong with the philosophy. There's something wrong with our understanding of the philosophy. Yes, that's true. But there's nothing wrong with the philosophy. Okay, so maybe we'll stop there because they're going to open the curtains in a few minutes. Are there any questions or comments or discussion? Hearing and chanting in the association of rightfully situated devotees. That's the key word, rightfully situated devotees. Right? If you hear from devotees who are not rightfully situated, you will continue to hold that resentment in your heart. Because they have resentment in their heart. How can they teach you to become free from resentment if they have resentment? Right? You have to be in the association of rightfully situated devotees. Otherwise, everything will be a failure. All the hearing from weaker people would simply continue your confusion. So, therefore, Prabhupada says here, Krishna says, he for whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is dear to me. This is what you have to hear. You want to be dear to Krishna, you have to remain equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. Purport. Srila Prabhupada says, a few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way as to put others into anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. Actually, because a devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification and his body, but when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification and he hasn't, he is sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he is in a state of fear, and when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. A devotee who is always transcendental to all these disturbances is very dear to Krishna. So, you want to be dear to Krishna, then you have to be able to see through Maya's tricks, causing fear, causing anxiety, causing doubt, causing discouragement, causing happiness, causing distress. All these things can be interpreted as tricks of Maya, because anything that takes you away from devotional service is Maya. Any thought that lessens your determination to be constantly engaged in service is Maya. Any person who encourages you to diminish your service to Krishna is an agent of Maya. Okay, go ahead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
यशोमती नंदन ब्रजबर नागर गोकुल रंजन काना। यशोमती नंदन ब्रजबर नागर गोकुल यशोमती नंदन ब्रजबर नागर गोकुल रंजन काना। गोपी परनदन मदन मनोहर कलिया दमन विधाना। आम्हाला हरिनाम मिया विलासा विपिना पुरंदर नवीन नगर बरा बंसी बदान सुवासा बंसी बदान ब्रजजन पालन सुरकुल नासन ब्रजन नंद गोधन रखवाला नंद गोधन गोविंद माधव नवनीत तस्कर गोविंद सुंदर नंद गोपाला यमुना ततचर गोपी बसन हर यमुना रस रसिका कृपा मोया रस रसिका श्री राधा मल्लभ वृंदावन नत बर श्री राधा भक्ति विनोद श्राया भक्ति विनोद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय राधा नील माधव राधे जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadra. Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Gaurari. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परतचार्य नामाचार्य हरदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री जगदानंद जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपी गोपीनाथ श्याम राधा गोविंद की जय गंगाराय गंगाराय की जय लक्ष्मी देवी तुलसी रानी की जय राम भक्ति की जय जय योग all glory to Sundar all glory to Sundar all glory to Sundar all glory to Sri Guru and God and all glory to Sri Prabhupada ki jai.